You're listening to Heroes in the Moment.
What's up, heroes? I'm Michael.
And I'm Nathan.
Today, She-Hulk.
Bro, the first episode, baby.
First episode.
A new season.
Brand new season. Brand new series. Man. Super excited to get into She-Hulk. She-Hulk. She-Hulk, attorney of law. Is it of or at?
I think it's attorney at law.
I think it's at law. Is that wrong?
I'm kind of too lazy to check my phone.
She-Hulk, attorney at law.
I think it's at law.
I think it's at law.
I think it is at
law. And initial reactions right off the bat, I have to say, what I said, on the last podcast, I was a little bit distant. I was a little bit hesitant, I should say, about it. But I really enjoyed this first episode more than I thought it would. Obviously, it wasn't perfect. It was decent, but it definitely exceeded expectations, I will say. And I was more impressed than I thought it would be. How about you?
Yeah, no, I feel the same way, dude. I sat down to watch it, and you had just texted me, like, it's better than I expected. I was like, okay. But it kind of surprised me, man. Like, to be honest, I was hyped for this show, but I wasn't expecting too much, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm not saying it in in a way where all Marvel projects are so bad now that this seemed good. Like,
no. It was genuinely.
If it was just this, I genuinely thought it was good.
I thought it was genuinely good.
And I was shocked.
Entertaining.
I really was.
I agree. I was very shocked because from the trailers, and they really threw us off with the trailers because it's different from the trailers.
I did not see it coming. The whole style was very different.
It
from
was
what I was
very
expecting,
different, and it was a lot better than the trailers delivered. So I was loving that, and I was very glad that it was definitely exceeding my expectations and stuff. And the comedy, it was funny, but it wasn't in your face.
Yeah,
it was
in
genuine.
Your face. It didn't feel forced, and I did like the chemistry in between the characters.
It felt very natural. It felt like natural comedy that would happen in day-to-day life, and I loved that. And when the show got serious, you felt the seriousness of it. Yeah, and it wasn't making fun of anything. Yeah, it was genuinely serious. I loved it.
Right, because you had the Hulk referring to all the the bad stuff that happened to him during the blip and his dead friends. It's like, oh crap, they're not just gonna make a crappy punchline out of this.
They didn't.
No, like we've seen before.
They genuinely cared
shout
about
out their writers.
Yeah, shout out to that. Good job.
W episode.
And I did hear, I could be wrong, but I did hear, the first 4 episodes released to the press, and I heard that they get better progressively. So I'm entertained. I also heard that Daredevil does not make an appearance in the first 4. But
that makes sense.
It makes sense. They're building it up.
Yeah, build it up.
I'm excited to see and I feel like they handled the characters well, and they explained stuff that we did not know, in the Marvel Universe better too.
There was so much explanation.
There was so many explanations.
And it wasn't wordy. In a lot of movies, you just see a lot of exposition, way too much talking and dialogue. Here, they gave you everything that, we've been kind of wanting to know without it feeling wordy.
Right. And it was a 30-minute episode, and I felt like it was a perfect amount of time. I didn't feel like it was too long. I didn't feel like it was too short.
Yeah.
I felt pretty pleased with the first episode, and I wasn't angry when it ended. I wasn't angry when it began. So it was definitely pleasing. So spoilers ahead as we get into the episode. That's your warning.
Facts.
If you want to stay, come on. All right.
Be a weirdo.
Be a weirdo. Stay if you want to. Give us a download. All right. So it starts off with us exploring her lawyer life. And then, of course, it brings in the fourth wall break, which I loves the execution of the fourth wall breaks in this episode. I thought they were very well done.
Yeah, I thought they were well done, and I thought they were unique, too. We've seen Deadpool, do them, and it felt different. I know she wants to compete with Deadpool, for that title, but I just feel glad they didn't just try to, compete kind of in that sense. It felt different, it felt authentic, an actual addressing rather than just...
And it was funny, it wasn't something that was stupid. It was genuinely funny. Yeah. She's like, okay, I'm the Hulk. I'm a Hulk.
You might be wondering, why.
Why it happened. So let's tell you the story.
Yeah, and that narration was cool.
It was.
Just pause. And that's, that whole thing, I thought this was going to be just a typical, pilot episode where it starts and they don't have powers yet. Right. But to start where she already does, 2 months later and she's working... And to go back through her storytelling was a cool introduction.
It was cool, and it was different, and it was new. And this show definitely felt different, but it definitely felt very MCU as well, in a good sense, and not like it's been lately.
Yeah.
So
many
that
references,
was very relieving.
Man.
So many references.
We got more references in
ones.
this one episode than a couple shows.
Definitely.
They put out.
Even from Miss Marvel, who should have had a lot more than it did. Yeah. So that's the crazy part. So it was very, very well done. All right. So then we go over to the car accident scene. And of course, we see Bruce and Jenifer Walters driving down the road, having a little road trip, cousin time, which is great. And then, of course, the chopsticks with Cheetos. Personally, right off the bat, that's a great idea.
I know. I've never thought about that either.
Now I want to do it.
But that generally to me is one of the most disgusting feelings. You know, like you're trying to pick up your video game controller, type in your laptop, and you got that crap on.
Yes.
You know, and it takes forever to wash off too.
Forever. I mean,
chopsticks.
Shout out
Jenifer Walters.
Next level.
I know you didn't make that up. But thank you for exposing me, man.
Yes, thank you for showing me the next level. The next level
in our
of
evolution.
All right. So, of course, and then we see a Sakaarian ship come down, and then, of course, they're thrown off balance, and then they go or crash in the, and have a little car crash. So, first off, we got to talk about the Sakaarian ship, why it came, what was it?
I just think, first of all, it was kind of funny, not the whole crash, but it just kind of came down over the road and just sat there.
Right.
Theories. I think the most prevalent one would be they're trying to get Hulk back. Right? He was a champion there for 2 years, and like you said, Hulk mentions later, he's like, "Oh, it was a Sakaar ship, Sakaarian ship."
Right.
I was champion there for 2 years. I think it pretty much, alludes to the fact that they want him
back
in some way. Maybe, or I don't know.
I think it's possible. The theory I've been hearing going around, this is not from me, but it's what I'm hearing going around, but I love it, is they think that the person driving the Sakaarian ship is, they're going from the Planet Cult storyline of Scar, Hulk's son, that he had while on Sakaar with somebody.
Trying to find his papa.
And trying to find him again, and maybe having some bad blood there, and then them inevitably going to fight. Ooh. I think that would be great. I would love to see Scar in the MCU. I would Hulk's son. I think it'd be great.
And he's such a dope character.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to figure out how that would seem. I guess I feel like that would be more of a gritty, darker approach. I feel like might be better suited off for a movie
like Hulk Zone or something like World War.
Yeah, maybe something like that. I don't know. I just have a hard time a vengeful, angry son confronting his father in this kind of She-Hulk.
Right.
And I feel like that might take a little attention away too
from She-Hulk in a show being about her.
But I would love to see him though. But
I think it'd be cool. I think maybe, that will be because, of course it's alluded to that Bruce is going to try to find out what happened with that.
Yeah.
So I think what's going to happen is She-Hulk's going to have her story. She's going to go through, the lawyer stages and do that stuff while Hulk's doing this in this process, and then come back and later in the finale and set up something in the future that's happening to where he finds out it is Scar, and then it shows him or something like that. Maybe
tease him for a next project.
Right. So something
classic
more of those
Marvel.
lines. Which would be okay with me. So to go to the car accident scene, of course, we get the origin. We get how Jenifer Walters gets the gamma radiation exposure from the blood. So the little bit, of course, they're changing the origin story from the comics, which I don't have a huge problem with. But the execution of it, I wasn't a huge fan of.
I had to rewind it, I think, 2 or 3 times to fully understood what happened. And they explain it a little bit later on. But like you said, I was fine with it, but it just felt a little too short. I kind of wish they would have spent more time on, her in the woods or,
in the process,
Bruce taking more caution, hey, get away.
Right.
It's really emphasizing the fact, you don't want this, which is kind of the theme, how she was feeling for the first episode.
Exactly, which is very good. I wish they would spend more time, like you said, but I also feel like, the explanation could have been a little bit better in that sense. And of course, since they are changing the comic book origin, that would be desired as well. Yeah. Because personally, I think the comic book origin was better than this one, because this one, oh no, she got his blood on him and now she's a Hulk. Okay.
It's less believable than the blood transfusion.
It is.
In this case, you have blood from his head dripping into an open wound on her arm.
Right.
While that's still possible, it just makes more sense. Hey, bad car crash. I'm the only one out here. I gotta save him.
Right. Right.
Transfusion.
And then instead of
that.
This being transferred like a sexually transmitted disease through blood.
I know. I was watching. I was like, bro, what is this, bro?
It's real biology, but at the same time, it's couldn't he have exposed other people too? But
I know.
I guess I bet it's because he had this transfusion, and when typically he gets hurt, he just automatically turns into Hulk. So because of this, that's the reason he's blood, so it doesn't happen often.
Yeah, because that broke, so it was the gamma radiated blood dripping down.
So that makes sense. That makes more sense.
But that was, like I said, it was kind of confusing watching it.
I still wish it was better executed, but I can look over that because the episode itself was really good.
Yeah.
So next up, we get her waking up in a bar or near a bar or something I don't know if it's a bar or a club.
Yeah, it's just a bar in the middle of nowhere.
Like that. And so she goes in there, and then she's swarmed by a bunch of girls helping her, and so that was funny.
I looked over at Lauren. I was like, "Do girls actually do this to each other in the bathrooms?"
I think so. Genuinely,
if I saw a dude just absolutely beat up in the bathroom, I just assumed that he just gotten out of a fight in the bar and be like, "What's up, man?"
Like, to be honest,
honestly,
though, like, the dudes, they know, like, when you're in the bathroom, it's sworn silence.
Yeah.
So it's like,
you give a little head nod,
just, like,
or you space the stalls out from each other.
There's this unwritten rules that it's the council of men have created, so we gotta follow
That's true.
So
it's unwritten.
but it was cool and it was funny, and of course we go out and see the whole men in an instant trying to take advantage of her and such, and then her turning into it, and I thought that was creative. But one thing I don't like is how they explained that 100%. When I was watching this, I was confused because the way that they showed it made her seem like she turned into an alternate personality like Bruce.
Yeah.
And then later it says, oh, she was conscious. Yeah. That didn't sit well with
whereas
me.
in the very first scene, when she turns into She-Hulk, she freaking rampages through the woods.
And then it seems like that she's awake, and she wakes up where she doesn't know where she's at. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
If they would have explained it to where, she woke up and she was like, what just happened? She would have stayed with Bruce more likely. That's why I like the original comic origin better, because it made more sense. And of course, her, gene altering does have control at all times. She doesn't have an alter ego in the comics. But I don't think it was executed well, and they made it seem like she does in this show, which she inevitably didn't end up having it.
No, I totally agree. It definitely does seem a little contradictory. Obviously, we can look past that, but it was just weird, kind of the way they teased it,
right?
And then they joked about it. No, she always has full control.
She always has full control. So that didn't make a lot of sense, but it was okay. All right, so then we wake up in Mexico, and then we have.
How did she get there? It's first of all,
Bruce definitely picked her up and got her. Yeah,
they just like. Does he have a passport?
See, that's another thing.
That's what I was thinking about.
Is she turned into the Hulk, beat up those guys, and then what happened to her? Did she black out, and then she wakes up in Mexico? It seems
did Hulk like drug her, or was she just blacked out the entire time?
What happened to her if she wasn't conscious to go to Mexico? That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, how did the Hulk find her?
I know, but it does make sense though if she wasn't conscious, and then he could take her. But
I feel like they could have at least. Giving us a sentence about what happened when she was out. But all we hear is like, no, you're in Mexico now in this lab Tony built me. Like, how?
Right. And that was inconsistent, and I didn't like that necessarily part of it. But the rest of the episode definitely redeemed a lot of that mishaps for me. So we'll go ahead and talk about that. So first off, of course, she wakes up, and then we get an amazing scene of her hearing the Avengers theme and then seeing an Iron Man helmet that brought tears to my eyes because emotions. I love Iron Man. Tony.
And the freaking lab he built.
The lab he built. All the Tony Stark references were amazing in this episode. I loved it. And a lot of MCU references, but this was my favorite. Obviously, because he's my favorite MCU character. All right. But then, of course, we walk down and we see Hulk's chamber. And we find out more about his experience during the blip and how he became Smart Hulk, as they call him here, but he's Professor Hulk. So how he became Professor Hulk in this situation, which was great to hear. Because, obviously we know he worked on it, but now we get to see how and why and where. So that was cool. I like that.
Just to recap, during that blip period, he found out, he invented the device to separate the two sides.
And Tony, of course, funded the project and the area and the stuff.
What I didn't understand initially and what I had a harder time grasping, I think maybe due to a weaker explanation, is how he turns back into Smart Hulk after the car accident. Remember?
Right.
Because he's human, he's perfectly separated from Hulk. Then afterwards, like, her blood and his, like, somehow cause his two halves to collide.
I think it's because
understand that.
He did automatically already was Smart Hulk. So when he turned back, he was Smart Hulk anyway. He was just merging. But then I think eventually the show will develop and how he loses the Smart Hulk persona and then goes back to the rageful Hulk that we miss and love.
I want to see that. Well, man, they kept on giving us like little glimpses,
and I loved it. And
it was Smart Hulk, but he was raging.
Right,
he was throwing rocks into a different universe. I'm like,
I think they're for sure teasing his return. And of course, I'm definitely wanting his return so much to see him Hulk out again.
We all are.
We definitely are.
Come on, Disney.
Bring it on, please. All right. And then, of course, we get more evidence of Hulk's arm and how he used Jenifer Walter's blood and her information to heal his arm, which was cool. I thought that was a good explanation, to bring him back into full fury into the MCU. So that was nice. What'd you think of that?
I liked it, but like I said, it took me a little bit to understand exactly, how it was healed.
Right.
I still don't even understand it. I think I do.
Yeah.
I think I do.
The transfer of blood.
If
only Morbius is there, he would love that.
Dude, bro, imagine another Morbius. Imagine a Morbius Hulk.
A Morbin Hulk. Unstoppable.
No, I shouldn't say that. I was milk.
Milk?
Yeah.
Milk.
I don't know.
I don't know. All right. But anyway, back to the seriousness of the show. But it does, have a little serious scene where there's not a joke and it's serious. It's genuinely Hulk talking about Tony and, of course, Hulk, and his emotions there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, just Hulk talking with Jenifer and Jenifer going, in a serious tone. She's like, I need to go back to work. How do I turn back? And it was completely genuine. And I love that. Like, I figured that this show would be another Thor, Love, and Thunder, the comedy thrown in your face, and then make a joke every
hey,
few
man,
seconds.
you're green now.
Right.
Here's your life.
Right.
And
then her being like, I don't need to be that.
Yeah.
But instead, they genuinely expressed her anger with that, her sadness, and her be like, I want my life back.
Like she said, she has been, years. Her whole life has been building up to this, prestigious career.
Right.
All of a sudden, she gets something permanently thrown on her, that she doesn't want to deal with. Because along with that, Hulk says, comes being a superhero. Like, you don't have a choice. And she doesn't want to be that.
And she doesn't want to be a superhero.
But the reason I love that whole just interaction is because we got so much about Hulk in this. We got to hear, his beliefs, his life story. I think it's really cool to see him in that mentor role. Because I definitely think in this episode, like, we learned more about Hulk.
We do.
Than we did She-Hulk.
And it was beautiful, and it was needed. Because we got She-Hulk, we learned about her, and she was cool. And I really like her as a character so far. And then seeing more about Hulk and getting his character development in this show and done well was amazing. Because we haven't gotten a lot of that in the MCU. Because Avengers Endgame, of course, turned into a big joke. Yeah. More so than before. No offense to Endgame. Endgame's a great movie, but they didn't do Hulk right. Infinity War didn't Hulk right, but it was a great movie. But in the MCU hasn't been getting it right. But now that this show, even though he is Professor Hulk, you're starting to get more character development of why, and then you're starting to get maybe more of what we're going to get in the future. Yeah, so that's really cool.
And even before that, it was just like more like always angry Bruce Banner, raging Hulk. But here, like even we just got to hear, like helpful little tidbits that he's learned, like spandex, high ceilings, just like stuff that's not comical, but that's just very grounded in reality.
Yes. And it shows his smartness aspect because typically the last MCU, it shows he's like, okay, he's smart. But he's a jokester. That's not Bruce Banner. Yeah. And in this show, he threw a couple comedy. He blew a horn and stuff in the face. He's funny. But he had that seriousness, that smartness, and the intelligence aspect, too.
Yeah, because he understands how rough the life can be.
Right,
and teach his cousin through it.
It was very
That was so cool to see him sympathize.
It was. And I loved it. Yeah. All right, so then, of course, we get our training montage. We get Hulk explaining how to Hulk. And training her a little bit, how to control it and stuff. We get our first Marvel Pixar reference, which was welcome for sure.
Which one was that?
That was the Inside Out. She was like, "Oh, can we watch a Pixar movie? That might get me, emotions going." Bing bong, and I was like, "Oh, Bing bong!" Oh, so emotional, but it was great.
He's like, normally it's. What does he say? Like anger and fear. And she's like, anger and fear. That's what being a woman is all about.
And I thought that was, it was funny. Yeah. It didn't feel forced. So it was funny. So of course we get her turning back into Hulk, realize she is in control. And we get that. And of course we get into more of him training her how to control and stuff. And her being more in control than he was. And then him getting a little frustrated, which was, correct.
It's definitely funny, like, he's absolutely shocked, throwing his, notebook away because she can turn, well, not, I guess, on command now, without a personality change.
Not completely, but better than he could.
And I did feel bad for him at that point, too.
But I do appreciate the fact that, yes, she does have those abilities that he didn't and doesn't really, but I love how they still made him more powerful than she is. Yeah, that's what was the cherry on top. Because I was nervous. From the trailers, it felt like they were going to make her more powerful. Yeah. But then, of course, you get that rock scene where he tosses one just to show her, and then she tosses one, then he's like, hold up a minute, and then throws it into little outer space. And I was like, yes, I know. Please, thank you.
That's smart Hulk doing that. Imagine that angry Hulk. That scene was so funny. It was just like being really petty. And that wasn't forced at all.
I loved it. And it was so genuine and it was great. And it shows that he is more powerful. Yeah. But he's holding back just to show her. But at the same time, when it comes to the more girl stuff, like balancing stuff, obviously, naturally, girls are better balancing than boys. So obviously, that makes more sense. And then as well as controlling her emotion, that's just her power that she got. Of course, she wasn't fully exposed to Gamma like he was. So she can control it a little bit more because he got the full exposure. So he got the
So he goes crazy whenever he goes crazy.
So it was cool to see that, and it's cool that they explained it well and a lot better than I thought they would, and not making us angry and making her more powerful already than he is.
And I love those very distinct you know, characteristics about them. You know, we see that in the comics, but I'm just glad, you know, we don't see an overlap of characters.
I agree. All right. And then, of course, we get her wanting to break away, wanting to go back to her lawyer life. And they have this funny fight that was great and definitely needed. Of course, he was completely holding back.
Yeah. I just wanted him to grab her, like throw her like he did The Rock. I was rooting for that the entire time.
I was wanting that too. And I saw a lot of people making fun of it because he was like, he can stop a Chitauri ship, but he can't stop a Jeep. Well, first off, his cousin's in there. Second off, he doesn't want to destroy his car.
Yeah.
I mean, so obviously he's not going to just crush it because he could have. He just jumped out of the way in time because he didn't want to hurt his Jeep and didn't want to hurt her. So it's like, you know, that makes sense.
He's just riding on the hood, For, you know, versus Avengers, he's all the way mad. And he's punching his full force.
He doesn't have control.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it makes more sense. So that was nice.
Marvel's inconsistent. Yep. He can stop a ship, but he can't stop a Jeep. Cancel that.
Two different versions, okay? Two different versions.
Two different
Don't bring the Star Wars toxism into the MCU, please.
We will not have that here.
We will not have that. All right, but it was cool to see that fight. His Hulk clap, great. I love seeing that. And then her doing, because she could only do like the sound waves. That was fine with me because she can't do it fully.
Kept on speeding it up.
Yeah, and then he threw her, and then she threw him, and it was great. And of course, they were holding back, and then they, you know, destroyed the bar. And then he was like, "No, my bar!" And then they helped each other, and that was funny.
He's like, "You're gonna pay for that.
You're gonna help me build this back," and they did. And then he's like, okay, you can go back to your life. And it was great.
He felt really lonely too.
Yeah. And it reminded me, like, you know, that's the typical sibling or cousin reaction. You know, they get mad at each other, but they make up and they sympathize with each other. Yeah. So that was nice to see. And I was appreciative of that as well. So that was cool. All right. So then she goes back to life. We see her back in the court case. But of course, it's interrupted when Titania comes in, which we don't know why yet, which I'm sure that'll be answered in the next episode. And of course, she hulks out, beats her up, and now the world knows who she is and that she is She-Hulk.
Yeah.
And then her having to deal with that. So next episode, what do you think is going to be predominantly about?
So I think before we do that, we gotta at least predict, because I feel like predicting why she came in there will lead directly into that episode.
Right.
I think we just heard a little bit about the case. This guy was accused of, like, I guess, inadvertently killing, you know, some citizens. So I think it's very possible that either one, the person who sent Titania knew of She-Hulk's condition and wanted to kind of expose that to the world, or two, sent her to, I guess, take out, I don't know, whoever was in the courtroom that they're trying to eliminate the case from.
More likely is the second option, because she was super shocked when she saw her turn to Hulk or She-Hulk. So I think it's more likely that, or to bust the dude out. One of the two ways.
Did a pretty bad job.
Yeah. So
I mean, a courtroom is not the place to do it,
not the place, because you're not going to win unless you're just like a superhero. But then again, she does have super powered, but she didn't expect She-Hulk.
She got absolutely mollywopped, man.
So that was entertaining to watch.
That was cool to see.
It was. But so I think next episode is going to be predominantly about her, you know, balancing the life between lawyer and, of course, being She-Hulk, the world finding out she's She-Hulk, and her reaction to that in that world. And then the villains, and that ties in.
That'll be tough. Not only are you coming to terms with who you are now, but you're watching the entire world come to terms with that, when even you haven't done it yet. Yep. So I mean, obviously it's, you know, it's obviously a little later, but dude, I really am excited to see it.
I am excited too. And then of course we got a funny end credit scene, and of course this end credit, I loved it. I mean, I usually don't typically like that kind of thing, but that was funny.
The whole time, you know, she was talking about, she had a cool theory about how Cap was a virgin.
Yeah.
And first of all, which just doesn't make sense. You know, if he went back in time when he got married, which, you know, she probably was thinking about that. Hulk was like, nah, you know, like 1943 USO tour. And that was just cool. Like, we got to hear like bits and pieces of Hulk's memory from the other Avengers. Like, there's a lot of Steve memories, a lot of Tony memories.
Right, exactly.
And that was just cool to see him, like, you know, just reminisce on that.
It was.
But that was funny. Like, it really was. And it didn't feel forced.
And I did hear every single episode of She-Hulk has an end credit scene, but every single one of them is like a funny gag, though. So,
okay.
But yeah, I'm still okay with that, because Peacemaker did the same thing. So, I'm enjoying that. So very solid first episode. Definitely a lot more surprising. So hopefully it keeps that momentum.
Facts.
Because obviously I was like, I don't think it's going to be good. Yeah. So hopefully I come back on that, because I don't want my prediction to come true. Yeah. I genuinely am cheering for the show.
We want 10 out of 10.
I do. But we always want 10 out of 10.
We want good,
So we want this to be good and entertaining. So far it's off to a really good start, and I'm hoping it keeps the momentum.
Facts, man. All right, guys, if you enjoyed today's episode, please let us know by giving us a review a like, and a download.
Yeah.
We really appreciate the support you guys have been showing us. So big shout out to listeners. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Heroes in the Moment is available on all major podcast platforms. So that's your Spotify, that's Apple Podcasts, that's Deezer. That's wherever you listen to podcasts. I can guarantee you it'll be on there. So go ahead, check us out. We have like 140, 150 previous episodes on there covering Star Wars, Harry Potter, DC, Marvel.
Listen to them all.
Listen to them all, yeah.
We'd love it.
And download them all.
Yes.
And we'll love you for that. It's transactional, I guess.
All right, guys. We just want to thank you for listening. And as always, we love you 3000.